Hi, everybody. This is Todd Kelly. I am new to YouTube. This is the first time I've ever done a YouTube channel, and I'm going to be talking about these books that I've had for over 25 years, called The Poem of a Man God by Maria Valtorta. Maria Valtorta was a nun that lived in the 40s, and or that rather wrote about these visions that Jesus gave her in the 40s. And she was bedridden, and for whatever reason Jesus chose her to be his reporter and to write down the exact visions of whatever he chose to give her, and essentially be a reporter. So she would write down everything she sees, she hears, she you know does not interject any of her own thoughts. They're just the facts. And that's what she did. Oftentimes, after the visions, Jesus would give her, would then teach on what she just saw in the visions. And it's an incredible piece of work. And not a lot of people know about these books. These books are not known, and I found out about them as an answer to a prayer. I had prayed that I wanted the truth, and that if I had grown up as a Muslim, I would feel that that's the truth. If I had grown up as a Buddhist, I would be certain that that's the truth. If I was Jewish, I would be convinced that that's the truth. If I was a Christian, I would be convinced that's the truth. And so I just asked Jesus through prayer if he would just give me the truth. And that prayer was answered. And it was answered in this way. At the time when I came across these books, the whole thing with Yugoslavia was going on. The civil war in Yugoslavia was going on. And there was a newsletter called the Medjugorje Newsletter that was being published, I think, on a weekly basis. And in this newsletter, they would publish parts of this book, The Poem of a Man God. And it was basically like, when I read it for the first time, it was amazing because you were dropping into the actual scene. You weren't dropping into an interpretation of what they remember Jesus saying or anything like that. You were dropping into the actual scene. So everything that was said, that was heard, that was done was done. She would write about. So it was an incredible piece of work. It wasn't 3 or 4 different versions like in the Gospels. This was the actual event. A lot of times in these books, these visions, what you'll drop into is you'll drop into a scene that's not even in the Bible. It's not even in the New Testament anywhere. Private conversations between Jesus and Judas. The exact conversation between Jesus and Satan in his temptation in the desert. You drop into the actual event. And so, and then on top of that, after the actual event, he'll teach on it. And so, it's just such an eye opener, and it gives such clarity. It doesn't take away anything from the Bible. If you skip to the end of the 5th volume, by the way, there's 5 volumes. It starts with Mary's parents, her birth, and it follows all the way through Jesus' life until his death on the cross. 5 volumes, they're 250 pages each. It's condensed. It is a lot of information and a lot of insight. So it's appropriately titled. It's titled The Poem because poems are typically very condensed, lots of information in a short amount of space. This happens to be a lot of information in 1,500 pages. I mean, so it's an enormous amount of work. If you skip to the end of the 5th volume, Jesus tells you why he did the work. There's a lot of historical stuff that Jesus mentions at the end of the 5th volume with regards to, popes or the church or things like that. I didn't get into all those details because I just want to get the gist of what he's talking about in these books. But what he says at the end of the 5th volume is he says he did this work because he wanted to clarify what's in the Bible. He wanted to add to it and clarify and just give more depth to it. He basically said that if one word is changed in the Bible, if you change one word, it can change the entire meaning of the text. And so what he did was he wanted to make sure that it was that the events of what happened during his life were accurate and understandable. So I have a reading list. When I've always given these out to people that I've come across, if they're at all interested in spiritual matters, and I just like to share my spiritual experience with them. And so I've always given them, I've emailed them because I have these books in PDF form. I came across them on the internet. I downloaded them, which is nice because the PDF files of all 5 volumes are searchable. In other words, let's say you're interested in a key word, like every time Satan's mentioned in these books, you can type in the search bar on the PDF and you can type Satan, and everywhere it's mentioned, you can read what Jesus has to say about that. I mean, you'll drop into private conversations between Satan and God, or Jesus' temptation in the desert, which is remarkable because these things in this kind of detail will never appear in the Bible. They just don't. I've never come across it. And it's just very enlightening. If you want to become more spiritually enlightened, and that's what I did when I asked for clarity back in the 90s. I asked God through prayer that I basically wanted to know the truth. And he answered my prayer. At that time, the civil war in Yugoslavia was going on, and there was a newsletter called the Medjugorje Newsletter. And this newsletter published, amongst other things, a small excerpt, a small piece, a vision basically from the poem of a man God. And when I started reading that, I just thought, wow, this is really incredible. And when I hit a tough point in my life, I went out and bought all 5 volumes. Now, it's a lot to carry around. That's why I like the PDF format, because you can put it on a reader, you can put it on your laptop, you can read it at night. You don't have to have a light on, because you have your computer screen. So, and more importantly, you can search for keywords. And I think that that's probably the most, valuable asset of the PDF files, is that you can pull out a thread. Let's say you wanted to search for everywhere Noah's mentioned, like in Noah's Ark, anywhere it's mentioned, the flood. It's not going to hit a lot, so you're going to maybe get 2 or 3 hits in different locations. And you can really get insight into what happened far beyond what the Old Testament would give. And so that's kind of how I got started. And that's how my prayer was answered, because in all honesty, if I had said, I said that if I was Jewish, I would feel that's correct. If I was raised as a Hindu, I would feel that's correct. If I was raised as a Christian, I would feel that's correct. I mean, we typically, I think most of us think that however we're raised is basically what we're going to believe as truth. And it's certainly reasonable to say that, that I just want the truth. And that's what Jesus did in these books. He wanted to give his vision, his life's work, to a person who was bedridden. Maria Valtorta, the author of these books, was bedridden in Italy, an Italian nun. His life's work through a series of visions. And a lot of this stuff will not appear in the Bible. I mean, there's private conversations between Judas and Jesus that are not going to appear in the Bible. There's private conversations between God and Satan that are not going to appear in the Bible. There were no witnesses to these conversations, especially those conversations. So they're not going to be written about, unless Jesus told one of his apostles about it. It's possible. But a lot of it I've never come across in the Bible. So it does add clarity. It doesn't take anything away from the Bible. Jesus makes that clear. His intent is not to take anything away from it. His intent is only to add to it, add clarity to the Bible, to the New Testament, to the Old Testament, to what's already there. And I really like it when people are straight and they talk plainly and clearly. I don't like any room for interpretation. I just want to just be told the truth, and I want it directly. I want a direct conversation, and that's what you get in these books. You get a direct conversation about his life, about all the spiritual matters. I mean, it's an incredible piece of work. You can buy the books. You can go onto Amazon. The title of the books are called The Poem of a Man God, and the author is Maria Valtorta. There's 5 volumes. You can buy used or you can buy new, or you can get the PDF format, which I have. And if you email me, I would be glad to send them to you. And what's nice about, like I said about the PDF format, is that they're searchable. You can carry them with you. You can read them on a plane. You don't have to walk around with this big pile of books. Excuse me. Some people really love books. I understand that. And if you do, go on to Amazon and buy them. So it's a good way to buy them. You can buy used ones. You can buy new ones, whatever you choose. So that's how this YouTube channel is going to start. Hopefully, over time, I become a little bit better at this process, and I can do better videos and nicer quality, but I'm just going to get started on this, and this is how I'm going to get started. So this is my first episode, just to let everybody know what this is. This is not fiction. This is not a fiction work. This is the actual event. A lot of people don't want to believe. If you don't want to believe, then don't believe. I mean, but I think if you read it, I think if you read this work, I think you'll be truly amazed at the level of nobody could make this up. When you read it, you're going to be amazed, and nobody could make it up. Nobody could make up the detail in these visions. Nobody could make up the commentary on the teaching that Jesus gives oftentimes at the end of these visions, or Mary. Sometimes these visions are concerning Mary's life and what she went through and the sacrifices that she went through when she was pregnant with Jesus, and Joseph presumed that she possibly cheated on him, right? What we would all think that. I mean, nobody would think that the Holy Spirit came down and impregnated your wife or your wife-to-be. And so, she'll talk about those things, and on how she dealt with that and how she talked to Joseph, and of course Joseph's concerns about that. So there's a lot of stuff there with Mary. There's a lot of stuff with Jesus, and I love how one of the things that's very moving to me also is how God interacted with Satan. So this stuff is super exciting to me. I think the best way to approach these books is to skip around. I think when you first get them, I think you should skip around and read sections of these books. Just find different things that might interest you. And then if you choose to start at the beginning, Start at the beginning, read everything in the beginning, and go all the way to the end. I think you're going to find there's lots of detail. I mean, you're almost going to have to read them over and over again. I mean, every time you read them, you find more you get deeper into the detail that you really can't get the first time. So I think that's exciting, and I think it can be very helpful in your life. It was certainly helpful in my life. So I'm just going to pull out threads on this channel of things that are in these books. And I would hopefully I could advance a little bit on my video skills to where I can show you on my screen what I'm seeing, and maybe we can read along a little bit. His English skills are excellent. My English skills are not as good as his. So oftentimes I have to look up some of these words that Jesus uses and get the definition, because I just don't use that word a lot. So so we're going to go through that kind of detail. I'm excited to get started. This is my first video, like I said. It's just an introductory. I'm going to go through the readings that I normally give to people. So I have put together a little PDF file of maybe 30 minutes worth of reading material that I give to people, and we're going to go through that reading material, and then when we're done with that, then we're just going to pick out things that are interesting and talk about them. So there's a lot of stuff to be done, and that's it. So I hope you enjoy my channel.